Steel Vengeance from Cedar Point is the RMC Hyper Hybrid, opened back up in 2018 and is basically just a bunch of records. No, actually it isn't, and honestly this RMC is absolutely amazing. Cedar Point and RMC really went out on this coaster. Like everything that you wish that an RMC had, this one has it. Inversions, airtime, amazing pacing, amazing drop, and overall this ride just has everything in my opinion. Now I've ridden quite a few RMCs at this point, in fact it's only 4, but the ones I've ridden are Twisted Timbers from Kings Dominion, Jersey Devil Coaster from Great Adventure, Iron Gwazi from Busch Gardens Tampa, and this one. And honestly, I can probably safely say that this one is my new #1 roller coaster. Now let's get into the stats of Steel Vengeance. When Steel Vengeance was announced, many people were saying this is just a bunch of stats, and you know what, I can agree with that, but even then the ride is absolutely amazing. We have a height of 205 feet with a 200-foot drop. That drop angled at 90 degrees with the ride hitting a top speed of 94 miles per hour. Very fast actually for an RMC. The only 2 coasters that are faster is Cedar and Iron Gwazi, and his ride has over, I think it's 33 seconds of airtime. That is a lot, with over 20 moments of it. This ride actually has a world record for the most airtime on a roller coaster, and you know what? You can feel every moment of that ejector airtime. Now, when you go to ride Steel Vengeance is located in the very back of the park, right in Frontier Town, right by Maverick. If you know how to get there, it's pretty easy from the Magnum Gate. You go past Gemini and you cross the railroad tracks, and then you go right by Maverick, but then you make a left, which then you cross another set of railroad tracks by Steel Vengeance. I absolutely love the area that Steel Vengeance is located in. It's all by itself in its own little part of the park, and it's pretty close to Maverick, which in my opinion is their second best roller coaster, so you don't really got to go far for their other best coaster. But to be honest, this ride area, they made the ride look really nice with that awesome track color, and the entrance sign is so cool. They really made it to where it looked like very presentable. It was a very presentable roller coaster compared to the old Mean Streak that used to operate at Cedar Point. In my opinion, out of all the coasters at Cedar Point, I think the best presentation on a roller coaster is by far Steel Vengeance, just because it looks really nice in the part of the park that it is in. Now, before I get into the actual ride experience that Steel Vengeance has to offer, I want to talk about this loose article policy, and this is something I never mentioned in my Twisted Timbers review, and I do not like any loose article policy, especially these ones. They have lockers in the station, in the queue, but it wasn't always like this. When the ride opened in 2018, there was a few incidences on both coasters where they actually had to start requiring lockers outside of the queue. These were like $2, you had to store your phones and everything in it, and it sucked. In 2019, they added zippered pouches under the seat, which you can actually find on coasters like Iron Gwazi at Busch Gardens Tampa Bay. In my opinion, this is the setup that should have stayed, because then everyone could have their phone throughout the whole line and then just put their phone into the zipper pouch, which honestly did delay dispatches, but in my opinion it was the better setup. In 2020, they went back to the original ones where they made everyone buy a locker, and in 2021, they're in their current one where they have free lockers inside the queue. But here's the catch of it: you cannot have fanny bags, any type of bag, but you can put your phones, keys, wallets. I've even fit a small camera inside of them. So yeah, that's what their locker policy is like. I'm not the biggest fan of it, but you know what? It's better than the original setup. And now let's get into the ride experience on Steel Vengeance. So when you leave the station, you'll pass by the transfer track, which usually all 3 trains are running, and then you'll go into a right-hand turn, which leads into 2 bunny hills. To be honest, these bunny hills do not really give much airtime, if any. You'll get some nice ejector pops in the front, but in the back, you don't really get any. Honestly, the airtime hills I wish were a little better, but then you go into your left, RMC loud lift hills. I love them. And you're going to climb 205 feet to the top, so you get an awesome view of Lake Erie. You won't really see much of the park because it is facing away from the park, but then you travel down that 200-foot drop, and oh my god, this drop is absolutely insane. You get ejected going down this drop. It is one of my favorite drops in a roller coaster. In the back row, you get an amazing pull over that drop. It's a really good drop, and it delivers some of the best airtime on the ride. Then after the first drop, you're going to go into a quick speed hill. To be honest, this speed hill gives a quick burst of airtime, but honestly, I usually forget about this element whenever I'm talking about this ride. In my opinion, it is one of the weaker moments of the ride. But then you go into this massive top hat element. This element, in my opinion, is the most underrated element on the ride. I never hear people talking about this. The laterals are so wicked because it's an unbanked turn. You get amazing laterals while being ejected out of your seat. I absolutely love this element, and more people need to start talking about this. But then after that element, you go into the wave turn, or the outer bank turn. This element is amazing. In my opinion, like everyone else, this is my favorite part of the ride. The sustain ejector is there. You just get, it's outer bank. It's amazing. I absolutely love the way that element is, and honestly, you get so much airtime. I absolutely love it. It's like a perfect element in my opinion. But then after the outer bank turn, you're going to head into another ejector airtime hill, which then leads into an upward zero G roll. The zero G roll is very fun and actually has a pretty nice floater going out of it. You get some pretty nice hang time if you're towards the back of the train. In the front of the train, you kind of fly through it. But even then, this zero G roll is actually pretty fun. And then you're going to hit like a sideways wall stall right next to the lifto structure. This is by far the weakest moment of airtime on the ride. It doesn't really give much to any, but then you're going to hit into a zero G stall. This is actually moving downwards and you snap pretty good on it. The snap going in and out of it is actually really good, and you actually get like somewhat sideways airtime, and the whip is insane on the zero G stall. Then after the zero G stall, you hit into another ejector airtime hill, which then leads into another double up. This double up begins with a really strong pop of airtime. In my opinion, this is the best moment of the ride in the front row, and then you hit into the mid-course brake run. This mid-course brake run will either make or break the second half of the ride. Every time I rode it, except for once the mid-course did not hit. The one time I rode it with the mid-course on, I didn't really think the ride was as good as my other rides. But then after the mid-course brake run, if the trims are off, you drop off of, in my opinion, one of the best drops on the ride. If you're in the back row, you get ejected coming off of this drop. It's like actually amazing how good it is. After that amazing drop, you hit into a double up. This double up is actually really good airtime. The first pop of air is actually really strong in all rows, and the second one isn't as strong, but is a really good pop of airtime. After that, you're going to hit into this twisted airtime hill that goes under the structure. This is the part of the ride to where it really starts to go out the structure, and it's a really strong moment of airtime while you're getting some insane laterals. I can compare this to the top head of Steel Vengeance by the laterals, but the airtime is just as strong. Honestly, this is one of my favorite moments in the ride, and I can see why people would say it's the best moment on Steel Vengeance. After the twisted airtime hill, you're going to go into an overbank turn into a zero G roll. The zero G roll is really fast paced and floaty through the structure. And then after that, you're going to go into two more consecutive airtime hills, both giving some pretty nice pops of airtime, which then will lead into another overbank style turn, but this time it's shaped like an airtime hill. I don't know, it gives a really cool sideways pop of ejector airtime. And then it leads into another zero G roll. This zero G roll is really cool and floaty, and it has some pretty good whip coming out of it, to be honest. And then finally, you're going to hit your last overbank on the ride, which you get some surprising airtime coming out of it. And then you hit the 6 consecutive airtime hills. You're going to go into a little bit of an off-axis hill, followed by 4 normal airtime hills with 1 really small bunny hill and a pop into the brake run. And that concludes your ride on Steel Vengeance at Cedar Point. Steel Vengeance is by far has one of the best coaster layouts out there. I mean, all the inversions, all the airtime, the uniqueness of the rides is there. But now it is time to give my final rating of Steel Vengeance. What am I going to give it? This should be no surprise. It's an 8 out of 10. Honestly, Steel Vengeance has one of the best coaster layouts. Actually, it's like a 10 out of 10. Maybe even 1,000. I'm not even that sure. This ride is perfect. There is nothing better out there right now that can beat Steel Vengeance. The airtime is there. The inversions are awesome. The whip is there. It has everything I look for in a roller coaster. It's insane, out of control, and honestly, everything it has is perfect. I love this ride. Like, you cannot stop me in loving this coaster. Like, I wish I had this as my home park RMC, but you know what? Iron Gwazi is my home park RMC, so like, I'm really happy with that actually. Yeah, but honestly, Steel Vengeance barely beats out Iron Gwazi. They're both really good RMCs, and honestly, I think Steel Vengeance takes the winner. So an obvious 10 out of 10. Amazing RMC. It's my new #1 roller coaster. And that is going to do it for today's video. Tell me what you guys think of Steel Vengeance. Have you guys ridden it? Is it your favorite roller coaster, your favorite RMC? Leave all the thoughts down in the comment section down below. I'll see you guys in the next video, and bye everyone.